All righty-dighty. So let's remember what the rules of engagement are. We have State Senator Sean McCann is in the room. Yes, so he will have a 7-minute introduction, up to 7 minutes. He doesn't have to take 7 minutes, but he has up to 7 minutes to kind of introduce himself. I think he probably knows most of you in this room, or at least you probably know him. But anyway, he's going to do that. And then when we sit down, we will have 5 to 6 different questions. Each question, as you know, will have about a 6-minute window for him to answer. Could be some follow-up questions as we move through. We will not have time for questions from the audience, right, per usual. So if you have a question for Sean, stick around afterwards. He'll probably stick around for as long as he can afterwards to kind of meet people and take any direct questions that you might have. Our question categories, as you know, we have categories. Our question categories are democracy and the rule of law, environment, energy and data centers, economy and cost of living, immigration and human rights, progressive leadership versus quote-unquote anti-Trump politics. And if we get to a minute or time, we'll also ask him about the Israel conflict. And I think other than that, we are good. Senator McCain. Right. 7 minutes, sir. The only thing I will tell you is that you're on camera. So if you move around, try not to move around too far because the drives are crazy.
I like to move around. I try not to drive you crazy. All right, Ken, thank you so much. Can you hear me okay? All right, good evening. Thank you all for being here. It's a really amazing turnout, and this is what we're seeing everywhere we go, everything we do. I'm Sean McCann. Hopefully I'm known to a number of you, but I'm not necessarily known to everyone, so I want to just tell you a teeny bit about myself. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm currently a state senator in Michigan, and I'm running for Congress because we must defeat Bill Huizenga this fall. I thought maybe that my last year, the 8th year in the state Senate, that I might not take this path, but for the second time in my lifetime, and for the second time in my political career, Donald Trump's come to be president and is putting our basic democracy and freedoms and values in peril. And just like I did in 2018, I know I needed to run again for this seat. Now, I'm an open book. What I've been saying to everybody is that I've got a record that goes back 21 years of elected public service here in the Kalamazoo area. But before that, I came to Kalamazoo to go to Western Michigan University in 1989, and have been here ever since. 36 years, not as long as some folks have been here, but it's my home. It's where I've planted my flag, where we pay our taxes, where my kids go to public schools. I have 2 kids now, 13 and 16, going to Kalamazoo Public Schools because those are our values. We believe in public schools, promise or not. And my wife is working at Western Michigan University. She's actually going to be chair of the political science department, so she doesn't want me to tell you that. She just got mad at me. Don't tell her I told you. Serious. I won't let her watch it. But you know, I came to Western and I got involved and I met some great people and I got engaged and I found a light in my soul that said I want to help people, I want to make a difference and use power for the good to make a better community. At the time it was to make a better Western Michigan University. And I found my way working at the Vine Neighborhood Association. Hello, Donna and Fred, my friends from the Vine Neighborhood. I landed there. I had a great experience trying to make the neighborhood better, fighting slumlords, organizing small businesses and neighborhood watches. And then I got involved on the Kalamazoo City Commission, and I got to serve there for 5 terms, 10 years, working hard for our community, making sure we had public safety, economic development, strong neighborhoods and communities, and I think we see the results of that. I'm really proud to have had a small part of that process, and then to run for the Michigan legislature and to expand those values at the state level. And I'm happy to talk more about that when we get a chance. I'll talk more about some of the things I've been able to do in those places and spaces. But you know, what I see is some of the things I got to do, like expanding health care in the state of Michigan in a bipartisan fashion. Republicans and Democrats accepted the Affordable Care Act. We added people to the Medicaid roll since 2014, and you know, we came to cover over 1 million people in the state of Michigan under expanded Medicaid and taking care of people, keeping healthcare costs down, bringing children out of poverty, helping families be more healthy. And now, this past year, last year officially, Bill Huizenga and Congress and Donald Trump have voted to take away healthcare from people. This is absolutely the wrong direction for us to be going in, and to benefit who? Millionaires and billionaires. That's not right. I can't square that. That's not how we do things. I got to be a part in the state Senate when we had a trifecta of control, which we are working very, very hard to get back. We need to flip a few seats in the Michigan State House to get back the ability to do some of the great work we started, because we expanded the earned income tax credit in the state of Michigan when we had the chance, quintupled it, and helped people out of poverty, help people get more of their money back in their pockets that are struggling to make ends meet. We got rid of the senior pension tax in the state of Michigan that had upended seniors' plans for and promises for retirement. But now with Trump and Bill Huizenga as his rubber stamp in Congress, chaos, tariffs, rising costs, war in Iran, this is going to fuel a huge problem for us in the coming years, but it's a problem right now. Can anyone point to a cost that got lowered by Donald Trump on day one? I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. And it's not happening. These are false promises, and this is Congress and Bill Huizenga going right along as an empty stamp, rubber stamp on him. Now also, I wonder if any of you have seen your congressman lately. Since 2018, hasn't held an in-person town hall, or a coffee hour, or an availability to his constituents, or knocked on doors. I do coffee hours, I do town halls, I take the good and the bad, that's what we sign up for. I think his congressman's moved on. He wanted to run for US Senate and was gonna do that, but for one reason. Donald Trump said, no, you can't. I like Mike Rogers better. So here we are. I don't know where I'm at on time. All right. So I'll just wrap up with this. It's going to take a hard-fought campaign to beat Bill Huizenga. It's going to take money and resources and people, and I'm seeing all of that come into this campaign. And I want you to know that I've run a couple of really tough, expensive, difficult campaigns in my time. In 2014, I ran for the Michigan Senate, and I lost out of 82,000 votes by 61 votes. And a lot of you were there to help me with that recount, and you remember, and I appreciate that, and that was enough to make me run again in 2018, along with Trump being president. And we won that time by 12,000 votes out of 100,000. That's the kind of shift I know and feel we can make here. It's a tougher uphill battle. It's going to take a few $1 million. We've raised a couple $1 million already. We can get there by November and compete. And the energy and the people power that I've seen all around, from Battle Creek to Holland to St. Joe, in Allegan County, all the counties, is there. It's there in spades. It's like nothing I've seen before, things that Don Cooney and I would have wished we've seen back in 2010 or 2012. It's there. So I thank you so much for your interest. I ask for your vote. It's critically important to me, and I know that we can do this together. Thank you so much. Now, the only thing missing here, the only thing missing here is a little bourbon between me and Ken.
Someone want to get that?
I'll take some.
All right, here we go. Democracy and the rule of law. So your campaign talks about protecting democracy. Many voters, though, believe the country is facing something deeper than ordinary political disagreement, including threats to democratic norms, misinformation, and concentrated corporate influence over our government. So a couple of questions, and you can kind of answer these in whatever order. What do you believe is the single greatest threat to American democracy right now? What would you do about it? And then weave in there somewhere along the lines, we also get a lot of interest around whether or not our candidates think Supreme Court term limits or reforms are needed, or any kind of campaign finance reform as a part of this. 6 minutes.
Okay. And I can come back to you.
Yes.
To remind me.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
it's 8 o'clock and,
Yep.
all right.
Even without the bourbon.
So yes, I mean, short answer is yes. We are facing tremendous threats to our democracy like those we've never seen before. And these are from the Trump administration and the Congress that is abiding by them with no guardrails, no intrusion, no support for our Constitution to rein in Trump's wild assaults on our democracy. Lawfare, warfare, threatening to seize ballots, claiming elections were not valid or overturned. So this is the biggest threat. And what I can do about it is I can defeat a congressman and help flip the U.S. House so that it does its job and holds the president accountable. Now, there's some other things. So I can't not look at my friend Pat Slambrook here, Van Slambrook here, and think about the fact that back in 2011, 2012, it was pretty evident to me that gerrymandering is a huge problem in Michigan and the United States. So, I love refreshing our memories because I still kind of want to carry my foam core boards around with me that showed some of the ridiculous drawings of some of these districts in Michigan, strictly by political parties. So we see this now. Gerrymandering is a huge threat to our democracy. And we've done it pretty well in Michigan, and I don't advocate on doing it, but I believe that the folks who can't win through fair elections are trying to rig the system and cheat their way into a victory. And we're seeing that with this, running count of how many seats can we pick up through red states and blue states gerrymandering. If I could have it not be that way, I would. And I'm glad Michigan did it the way we did. I'm not saying we did it perfectly in Michigan, but we did it all right. But short of a national gerrymandering ban, short of a national independent redistricting commission, we cannot just lie down and let this happen as people of values who value democracy. We cannot let this assault go forward without answering it. So that is the predicament that we're in. So I support the measures that are being taken to counter that. Now let's talk about Citizens United. All right, a huge threat to our democracy by a Supreme Court that is not representative of our values and of our people in a democracy, that have foisted this terrible situation on us. Unfettered money, dark money, flowing into elections, billionaires with outsized influence. These are the things that we're seeing and having happen across our country. Now, I will tell you this, and this will be a follow-up, so just kind of maybe put a pin in this and we'll come back to it. Some states are trying to figure out a way around Citizens United, a way to possibly rein in the worst abuses of it at the state level. And I'm taking a close look at that too, and seeing what we can learn from other states. Because just as Michigan had to, through the ballot box, institute independent redistricting, and we've had to institute expanded voting rights, which is a great hedge against some of the things that we're getting threats on from the administration right now through the ballot box. The MOP proposal through the ballot box. And one of the things I didn't mention was that, when I mentioned briefly the trifecta that we were able to do some of the good policy that we did in the state of Michigan was because we built a majority in the Michigan Senate over 3 cycles, 14, 18, and 22, and flipped the Michigan Senate for the first time in 40 years. So if you think about the fact that no policy really that was progressive could move through the Michigan Senate for that whole period of time. It really makes you think back to why some things hadn't happened and taken so long in Michigan, why you all had to work so hard to gather signatures and pass things like no reason absentee voting at the ballot box. So we're doing what we can with what's available to us to challenge this administration. And I am supportive of our Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who have stood, and Governor Whitmer as well, who have stood as a wall in great resistance to some of these attempts by the Trump administration to undercut and undermine our democracy, our voting, the integrity of the ballot box. Let's see. So those are sort of some of the key threats that we have to challenge.
So part of the solution, at least for democratic norms then, is really winning these types of races. So the problem is that Congress isn't really doing its job as it's currently made up with Republican majorities, right? And so a Democrat majority or a Democrat House, and Lord help us, a Democrat House and a Senate would, in your view, be the first step to getting back to Democratic norms? I mean, are the Democrats just going to like take advantage of this new autocratic presidency? And if we got a Democrat elected, are we just going to like, is it just going to teeter-totter to we got our king and they're going to want their king?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's where we're coming from. I think where I'm coming from is that Congress needs to restore its ability to check the executive, which is as the founding fathers intended it. And currently, the existing sitting congressman has abdicated those responsibilities and let the administration run wild. We have Department of Justice targeting people as political targets, and Bureau of Elections targeting Detroit, still claiming that ballots were found in the Detroit election in 2020. I can't believe we're still clinging to the idea that the 2020 election was somehow stolen. It's just offensive to me. So much to do, but it starts with winning elections, flipping the House.
Any opinion on Supreme Court term limits?
It's something that I find a really interesting topic. I'd want to have some more discussion about it because I think much like a filibuster or another constitutional structure, the question is when does it sort of serve one's interests and when does it not serve one's interests? So we can see times when the situation with Congress, the filibuster has helped protect the minority, but yet there's been times when we wish it was gone. There's been times when we wish a justice maybe was retired or term limited, but then there might have been justices we wanted to keep around beyond a certain point, or justices who have stayed over too long in their roles and should have retired but didn't, and then that has created a problem. So, but what I'll say about that question, just to close it in this, is that my focus is on defeating the incumbent, trying to restore health care and reduce costs for struggling families, take care of the people in Southwest Michigan and the 4th Congressional District, but also help our country start to recover, start to restore some sanity and some normalcy to our institutions and our country. Okay.
All right, well, we'll come up to cost of living and things of that sort, but right now we're going to kind of turn to environment, energy, data centers. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you're the chair of the Michigan Senate Energy Environment Committee, right? So yes. As the chair, you've had direct influence over energy policy, economic development decisions. Michigan is now seeing growing pressure for large-scale data centers and AI infrastructure, which can consume enormous amounts of electricity and water. Critics worry that economic development, and quite a few people in this room would share this worry, that economic development is moving faster than environmental protections. How do you respond to concerns that Democratic leaders have sometimes been too accommodating to industry interests when it comes to energy and environment policy?
All right, there's a lot of questions in there.
Yeah, there is.
So I might come back to you and
have
you give me some specifics. Yep. But Yeah, I am proud of the multiple roles that I serve in the Michigan Senate. I'm proud to have earned those roles through hard work and supporting that flip of the chamber, which took a lot of work on the part of a lot of people. So I was honored to be serving as chair of the Energy and Environment Committee. Honored to serve as the vice chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. I serve as a member on 6 other standing committee and 3 other budget subcommittees. So we spread the work around, and I took a big workload. But I still am one of 20 now, or back to 20 as of the special election this past week, that have to move together as one caucus, as one body. And as you might have recalled, not to get into the weeds too much, but the House, when it was controlled by Democrats in the last term, also was a very bare majority and had challenges operating and passing some budgets. Even at the end of the year, we have 9 bills that are still held up with the Supreme Court because they didn't get passed. But one of the best things that we got to do in the energy and environment space, well, a couple things. We got to pass some of the most comprehensive and forward-looking clean energy laws in the state of Michigan that addressed carbon emissions in our state, and that took the whole caucus. It went through my committee. I was happy to be a part of that. I wasn't necessarily the author of the bills, but we got it done together as a full caucus of 20 in the Michigan Senate. The House got it done. The governor signed it, but it was a difficult and negotiated process. And the House this past week, or last week, has voted to repeal all these clean energy laws. All right, so they're already saying this is not the path for Michigan. We want to undo all the clean energy laws, the carbon reduction, the work that's been done. So it's already under attack by Republicans in the House. Now, what I want to say also about a couple other things is, I remember a time when I stood shoulder to shoulder with Don Cooney when PCBs, sorry, I'm going to get them confused. PCBs were a threat that people wanted to bring out of the Kalamazoo River downstream, and plant them here in the city of Kalamazoo in a landfill. And we fought that effort, and I am proud of that because there's an environmental threat. We're trying to clean up PCBs, but here we are now dealing with emerging PFAS contaminants. So the Michigan Senate and the Michigan Legislature reduced for safety the amount of parts per million PFAS are allowed in our drinking water. So safe drinking water is something that we've been fighting for. When the Republicans had full control of the legislature and the governor's office, they passed something for Michigan saying that we could have rules in Michigan to protect the environment no stricter than federal, right? No stricter than federal, which meant that the federal government set a base floor for rules that states could adopt to protect their environments, and no state may go above that minimum basement level. And so here we are in Great Lakes State, rivers, water. I authored the bill, and we passed the bill that got rid of that prohibition so that Michigan can set higher and more important environmental standards here in our state. Thanks. So I don't know where we are on time. It's easy to lose track, but what I can tell you is that data centers and AI was not on anyone's radar screen 4 years ago. This is a very new and rapidly emerging issue. I'm still learning about it, but what I've come to a base level on the issue of AI and data centers is that we have to make sure that people are protected through all of this, and our resources are protected, and our homes and communities are protected if these are going to be built, and that local control is preserved. Water is not removed from our environment. Energy costs don't go up on our backs with a development of something like this. So I know that we in the Michigan Legislature are working on additional guardrails legislation. It doesn't happen overnight, but we're working to make sure that these protections are honored. We want to make sure that local control is honored. I come from a local community. I served from the Zoning Board of Appeals through the City Commission, and we have to make sure that local communities have a say in what goes on and what gets developed in their communities. So that's where we are in data centers at the moment. So
Do you think it's just a state thing, or do you think that's a federal issue? I
Yeah,
think,
that's a good question.
I think part of the question is that it feels as if these data centers are moving at a pace faster than the legislation is keeping up with them, right? And I don't know whether that's a state issue or a federal issue to either hit the pause button on these things if that's what's needed, or to your point, you're saying that you've got legislation's introduced and all this is going on, but is it keeping pace? Is it going to outpace corporate interests and their need to build these things?
It is rapidly evolving, and I think we're trying to respond to it as quickly as we possibly can. Sometimes legislatures can move very quickly, but we have a divided legislature, so it's not like I can tell you exactly what the solution is and that that's going to become adopted into law. There are competing interests. Is there a national role here? Yes as well. We absolutely, again, have to protect people, resources, jobs, affordability. These cannot be impacted at the federal level. So at both levels, I think that there's going to need to be more policy. And, Donald Trump's going to be president, but a House flipped and a Senate flipped can put legislation on his desk and make him decide what to do with it.
Next topic, economy and the cost of living. Seeing your campaign frames itself heavily around affordability and results over rhetoric. Your campaign talks about lowering costs for working families. What are the top 2 or 3 federal policies you would prioritize to address the rising cost of housing, health care, and everyday living expenses?
Yeah, so we'll talk about healthcare, we'll talk about budget priorities, and the fact that Congress is not doing anything proactively to deal with the administration's activities. So let's talk about tariffs, first of all. Okay, chaotic tariffs. The Trump administration is not being held in check by Congress at all. That's what I'll go in to do, to put checks on the administration. Healthcare. The failure to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, along with the lack of renewal of the cuts to Medicaid, are huge stresses on affordability in our community. And this is what's causing families to struggle. Your congressman has no problem with this. Fine with the tariffs, fine with the cuts to Medicaid, fine with not renewing the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Again, my record's clear. I've worked to lower costs in the state of Michigan to every possible way I can. Tax relief for people, whether it's working families, senior citizens, auto insurance rates, holding down electric costs and converting us to renewable energy. These are the ways that I will pursue similarly in Washington, D.C.
Do you have a position on Medicare for all?
So I think that what we need to do is maintain and allow people who have health care programs and coverage that they want to keep to be able to keep it. I think we need to have a full public option available for people who want or need that coverage. Can we get to that? Again, if we can flip the House, flip the Senate, put that on the president's desk, what will he do with that? I'm not sure. But we're in a healthcare crisis and we need to do more, but we're going in the wrong direction. And you think about how difficult it was just to get the Affordable Care Act passed. My friend and constituent now, Mark Schauer, congressman, won in 2008, voted for Affordable Care Act, lost his job in 2010. We just to get that from President Obama and the control of Congress at that time was extraordinarily difficult. But we can do that here if we win elections, flip chambers, change the priorities in Washington, D.C., just like we changed them here in Michigan.
Many progressives still on economy a little bit. So a lot of progressives will argue that the problem with our economy and cost of living isn't merely inflation, but corporate concentration and wealth inequality. Do you agree with that, or what's your thought on that?
Oh, and let me come back to just one other thing that I meant to talk about, but I didn't, and then we can come to the question. So budget priorities in Washington, D.C. are also out of whack. We're advantaging billionaires and millionaires at the cost of everyday people. So your question didn't come, but how do you afford this? How do you pay for things? And I can tell you, having been on the appropriations committees in the House and Senate for the last 11 years, budgets are how we accomplish our priorities when legislation can't get through the process. Usually you've got to have a budget done every year in the state of Michigan. And this is where you decide what you're going to pay for. Are you going to pay for healthcare for people, or are you going to pay for tax code advantages for billionaires? So now, sorry, Ken, go ahead with the, you said some people were saying.
Well, about corporate concentration and wealth inequality are like one of the big drivers of our cost of living. And, what's your position, or do you agree with that statement? Let there's wealth inequality and concentration of corporate influence.
Yeah, we have tremendous wealth inequality in our country, and the tax code drives a great deal of that with how we're trying to address it. And we have tax code that advantages corporations. It gives a lot of advantages to corporations to raise prices unfettered. The president is on board with that. I think there's a lot to do.
Okay. Next topic, immigration, human rights. Immigration and detention practices were among the strongest concerns raised in our listening sessions here at IGK, particularly around due process and detention centers and ICE enforcement. What changes would you support at the federal level to ensure immigration enforcement is consistent with civil liberties and human rights?
Yeah, so let's be clear. What's going on with immigration is appalling in our country. It's absolutely disgraceful, and this is what this administration wanted to do, and they told us that they would do it. And they told us that the president ordered comprehensive immigration reform a way where we could have a path for people to become citizens legally in our country. And the president knew that he could advantage his election odds by telling his allies in Congress to not do that. And now we have the aftermath of that. We see families torn apart. We see ICE overreach. It's appalling. And Congress does nothing. They stand by and let this happen. There are no hearings. We haven't had a hearing into the death of Alex Priddy or Renee Good. We haven't had any accountability for ICE's activities, except for one department chair taking over for another. I don't think that changes things fundamentally. So we're going to need to change course. And the way we do that is by sending a message to the president that this is not acceptable to the American people, and that this is your new Congress that's not going to let this go on.
Do you have an idea what those immigration policies might be?
What the policies that were contemplated under comprehensive immigration reform was allowing Dreamers and DACA to become citizens if people followed the rules and didn't commit crimes and did all the things that they're supposed to do, that there's a path to citizenship. That's what the promise was. In fact, the worst damage is the folks who have undertaken those paths only to have that pulled out from under them. It's unconscionable to imagine that you are doing the things that a dreamer should be doing, and then all of a sudden you're out, the game changes, and the rules shift.
Okay. Next topic, progressive leadership versus anti-Trump politics. So many Democratic campaigns right now are centered primarily on opposing Donald Trump and MAGA politics. Some progressive voters worry that simply being not Trump is enough. So beyond defending Democratic norms, what larger vision are you offering voters here in Michigan 4th about where the country should go economically, socially, morally? You know, this could also get into things like, you know, child care expenses, a little bit more, you know, a little bit on the affordability things, but, you know, talk to what your vision is that you would like to see enacted should you get into Congress.
Yeah, and I feel like every opportunity I get, every audience I speak to, talking about the need to address healthcare costs, the need to address housing costs, the need to address families that are struggling to pay their bills and make it every day, childcare, housing, auto affordability. It adds up, utility bills. I would say, look at my record, see what I've helped do. I don't take credit for all of it. I'm part of a greater process, but we did Medicaid expansion in Michigan. That helped cover people under health care. We reduced tax burdens on struggling families and senior citizens on fixed incomes. We reformed auto insurance to try to bring auto insurance costs down. We've put priorities into our budget that take care of the basic and important things that people have come to expect government is supposed to do, to be there for. Fix roads, protect our water, make sure our drinking water is clean, fund our schools. We funded free breakfast and lunches in Michigan's budget to bring that relief to families. It's a relief to us. We're packing 2 lunches in the morning sometimes, and some days we can say, you know what, kids, you're able to get lunch at school, no questions asked. That's been a huge lift for families in the state of Michigan. And we can do that because we have the ability to balance our budgets. Now, if we talk about healthcare for a minute, we're now backfilling in the state of Michigan's budget the cuts to SNAP and Medicaid that's come from the federal government. So this burden's been placed now, like you're still paying your taxes, right? But that cost is now shifted to states to pick up. Your taxes aren't funding SNAP, and they're not funding Medicaid. They're funding tax cuts for billionaires and millionaires to get ahead. And now guess what? We, state of Michigan, are left holding the bag. So we've had to reach into our coffers and rearrange our budget priorities so that we can deliver and not let rural hospitals collapse, not let people on Medicaid be kicked off. We're trying to smooth out and make as less difficult as possible the coming paperwork, the twice-a-year paperwork that people are going to have to fill out now to qualify for their Medicaid benefits, not because that works, but because it's come from the federal government. So fixing the roads, infrastructure, a lot of the tax credits to help fuel clean energy, to build our infrastructure out, came from the Infrastructure Reduction, or the Infrastructure Act, the Inflation Reduction Act. Those were better uses of our taxpayer dollars than what we're seeing right now. And that's been the policy shift in Washington, D.C. that impacts us as a state of Michigan, that we now have to address those priorities and back them up, as opposed to having our federal government budgets address those policies.
So as a congressperson, then, you would endorse, advocate for return of funding levels for SNAP and things like that from a federal perspective to give relief to the states? Would that be one thing you'd be tangibly looking to do?
I would absolutely put together a budget that restores and improves SNAP benefits and restores and improves healthcare coverage, Medicaid, protects Medicare, protects Social Security, all the things that are at risk unnecessarily and needlessly because of wayward policies in this administration that's building a ballroom, a golden ballroom, and monuments on the streets, and helping friends get ahead rather than helping everyday Americans get ahead.
Do you think then that in order to do some of those, to return to some of those funding levels, that you're going to have to address the tax system? So we'll have a rollback to where it was, so that millionaires and billionaires are paying more?
I don't know exactly what something would look like since I'm not there, but
Right.
the tax brackets have shifted, the tax treatments, the exemptions for things like private jet travel. I mean, there's lots of places and lots of spaces where we can do a lot of work to move things in a better direction.
If you had a magic wand and you could just make the budget the way you wanted it, what would you do and how would you fund it? I mean, really, I mean, there's a lot of pragmatism when you talk, right? Because you've been a legislator for so long, and you can really point to, a lot of things that you kind of accomplished through negotiation and things of that sort, from a very pragmatic level of working in a two-party system. But I think part of what we're looking to hear is some of that visionary stuff. Like, if you could get out of that pragmatic sensibility and what it is that you just want to get done as a congressperson, kind of damn the torpedoes. You would raise taxes, you would pay for childcare, you would do what are those things that you would like to get done?
Well, I think that the federal budget is obviously a bigger and different animal than the state of Michigan budget, and I've been a part of that process. But I would point us to the time when Democrats had control of the House, the Senate, and the governor's office, and the kind of budgets that we passed, the investments that we made. Also, just a side note, because I can't resist not saying this. Your current congressman is the only member of the delegation from Michigan, Republican or Democrat, who refuses to do legislative directed spending, which means he won't bring back any money, any of your tax dollars, to do improvements in his congressional district. Every other member, Republican and Democrat, are willing to do this. They think it's important. And this is what we got a chance to do, and what I do every cycle, every year in our budget, is try to bring back resources and investments in our local community. Now, I know this is a bit of a sidestep from your question, and it's not, but it's about how we value the tax dollars that you spend and how it's reflected in your budgetary priorities. And I'm proud of the budgets that we've done in the state of Michigan. We haven't raised the income tax in the state of Michigan. By the way, there's been proposals to do a graduated income tax in the state of Michigan. Unfortunately, those have not gotten there, but we do have a graduated income tax in the United States, and I think that works well, but I don't think that the brackets are in the right places. And I don't think that, there are plenty of resources there in the federal budget if we choose to allocate them the way that makes more sense than we're doing it now.
We're almost done. People good for another 5 minutes or so? Okay. I want to kind of give you an opportunity to talk about the Israeli conflict. And then I know that there's been a lot of discussion and hubbub around AIPAC money and what your position is on accepting AIPAC money. And then also, I think there's also been some questions around whether you're accepting campaign support from the energy companies as a part of your campaign to DTE and consumers and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. Well, let me start with those and then take it to the other question. So I'm not accepting AIPAC dollars or money contributions from AIPAC or DTE or Consumers Energy, and that is where I'm at.
Now, have you? I mean, in previous campaigns, have you?
For my campaign for Congress, I am not accepting contributions from those entities.
Okay.
Others. So, yep. And then to conflicts. So I guess I view conflicts more broadly, and I come at the conflicts from a fatherhood perspective, a parent with two kids who I would never want to see suffer or face harm or displacement from homes and not being able to have education. or all of the horrors of war and conflict, and hope and think that in this world today, through diplomacy and non-harmful measures, that we can reduce conflict in the world and in our communities where we have violence and harm and crime. And so whether it's Ukraine or the Middle East, war in Iran, we need to do everything we can and in our power to stop conflicts and reduce suffering for people. Now, for the moment, there seems to be a tenuous peace or ceasefire in the Middle East, in Israel. And I hope that that holds as my greatest hope, that we can hold that there. Then comes Iran, and people dying, innocent civilians dying in a war choice that we should not have prosecuted. And we have Ukraine in a multi-year conflict that is not resolved. And there's a president who said he would, resolve it on day one. He's going to lower your costs on day one, and he's going to solve the Ukraine war on day one. So, we have changed dramatically as a country, as the United States, in terms of how we are viewed in the world and how we operate in the world. And we are not the actor that we once were, and we are not a global actor that I am proud of. And that needs to change. Now, I think Congress has a role there, where the Congress is not the President of the United States, but Congress can institute war powers resolutions. They have the power of the purse. They have the ability to put some controls on our abilities to wage war or engage in diplomacy, and that's not happening right now. Again, it's a theme on any issue tonight. You have an unchecked administration that's doing what it wants, to the great dismay of myself and I think all of us in this room. We need change. The message that is sent by a flipping of the House, perhaps a flipping of the Senate, is unmistakable, that this administration and this Congress that abides by it is not acceptable, and it's not in line with the values and the priorities of the American people.
All right. Thank you very much. You have 3 minutes to do a little bit of a closing statement.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Oops, you're still wired.
I'm still wired. Let me do that.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the questions and the dialogue. Thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you for your attention and your interest. All I want to say is kind of where I left off with the opening remarks, which is the energy and the engagement and people working to make change is off the charts for me. And kudos to Indivisible Kalamazoo. We're going to Indivisible Holland Zealand tomorrow. We've been to other groups and organizations to talk about this. But your organizations, your organizing of No Kings rallies gives lift and hope to people like me, to our neighbors, to our friends, that what I said a moment ago, which is that this is not where we are as a people, this is not what we want as a country, is unmistakable. And the only thing I can think of is that we need to obviously sustain this through November. We need to build it. We need to get stronger than where we are today. And we need to have our decisions within primaries that have passions running high right now. And we have to ask ourselves and commit ourselves to how we can come together after we sort of fight amongst ourselves here. It's hopefully healthy. It can't become unhealthy. We can't let our passions for people who are our flag bearers, whoever they are, cause us to then not be able to come together as a big tent, as a place and a movement that leaves room for everyone, that lets us heal whatever divides we might have from from our primaries, come together, be powerful, and then be willing to really take it to what we have to do in November. Let me tell you one thing I've really learned about this process of running for Congress. We have a really late primary in Michigan. We've got to pivot so quickly, and y'all did great work with early voting, amazing, but you know what that did in an electoral sense? Ballots come out 6 weeks after the August primary, 7 weeks. It's like that. So that's the challenge that's in front of us as people of goodwill who want to do good things, that we have to reconcile, unite, come together, and win the big contest in November and make a real change in this country. Keep up the great work. I'll see you at the next No Kings rally. I'll see you everywhere I can be, doing everything I can with you, for you, and appreciate all your time and interest and energy. It's more than I've ever seen in my lifetime. It gives me great hope. Keep up the great work.
All right. He didn't ask you specifically, but I will. If you like what you heard, get involved in a campaign, right? This is where we make a difference. You know, either send in some money, give them your time, give them your talent. Simone's back there as a campaign manager. We got other people back here. So if you liked what you heard, don't sit on the sidelines. The stakes are too high. Gloria, was there anything else we needed to cover tonight? We are good. Thank you all for coming.